Next, we have a talk by Keren, who is co-founder and CEO of LinearB, and he is going to be talking about how to bridge that gap between engineering and the exec.
Hi, thanks very much for the intro. We're going to talk about how you can translate engineering to executive. It's a problem that I experienced a lot throughout my career. I think I'm going to jump immediately to a quick intro about myself. So right now, I'm the co-founder and the CEO of LinearB, our company that focuses in similar problems to what I'm going to talk about today. But I began coding at the age of 10. I actually put an image of my first computer. It was a Sinclair Spectrum ZX with 48K RAM. I don't know if it's like, every time I do this and I speak about it, I get like all this reaction. Oh, I had the same computer too. So this is still one of my first crushes. This is my first startup and my third startup with LinearB. The previous two, I was running the engineering group. So I was a former VP of engineering with two startups that, grew, experienced that pain of growth and what kind of problems you handle when you're 20, 40, 50 people, 100 people we had at one point. And I live in Tel Aviv. I'm in Tel Aviv right now. One other thing that I think it's important to emphasize, like I think when I was developer at the beginning, I thought that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. I still really love it. I was promoted to a team lead, director, VP, and eventually, I don't know if it's promotion, but now I'm running my company with my partner Dan Lyons. And our mission is to, and this is what I want to talk about today. We are seeing that data is coming also to the engineering organization, and we want to make sure it's happening in the right way, where it's friendly for developers, it's not ruining the culture, it is focusing on the right stuff, and that's what I'm going to try and talk today. I'm going to start with a story, and the story begins when I was promoted to a VP of engineering in this successful startup. We were 40 or 50 people back then. I was so excited, so I prepared, this is the first staff meeting that we had with all of my peers, VP sales, VP of marketing. And I said, okay, I'm going to come prepared. I prepared, okay, this is our project and how we staffed in each one of them, really data-driven. I came like ready to show that like we have data too in engineering. The weekend before, we had like some production fires and production issues. I fought side by side with the developers, felt very, encouraged that we solved the problems, and came into this, Monday meeting to share my strategic ideas and all of that. And then all I got in this session, and once, by the way, the session went for an hour, 15 minutes, they were talking about sales, and then it came to my part, and all I got was like I was washed with like, okay, how come we were down, and why are we still down? Are we still down? It was a very rude awakening from what's expected from me in this role, or at least what I thought I'm going to bring to this role. If that wasn't enough, once I left the room and I met the developers that we worked together on the problem, they were all, listen, management doesn't get what technical debt is, how much of a complexity it is like to build great software services. So I guess the image that was in my head at that point in time is similar to what you're seeing here now. I kind of felt that I was trapped between these two universes. At one, there's discussions about how do we improve our stability, right? The throughput, should we break the monolith to microservices, etc. Exciting discussions. I can be dragged into those discussions for 2 hours and like I'm enjoying them so much, but they're all about that. And then on the other side, there's discussions about how we, increase sales. Is the top of the funnel that we're getting is good enough in terms of volumes, quality? Also super exciting and all new to me, and had great conversations there and great ideas. But it kind of struck me that there's no bridge between these two universes, between these two worlds. When I try to do something about, hey, engineering is a complex thing to be that I want to share with you on the business side, I didn't get like the good reaction, and vice versa. When I said to the guys, hey, uptime is great, but are we building the things that are driving the business? They want to be focused on technology. So this gap was really obvious to me. And it continued because in the next staff meeting, and as we went along, the questions that I've been asked were, and I'm sure every VP of engineering can identify with that, probably never heard this question, right? When will feature XYZ be ready? So I was asked that, just outcomes. When are we going to deliver that? We need to reduce our AWS costs. And my favorite one, that's an easy task, right? 2 lines of code, can probably ship it in like 3 hours. So it was all about outcomes and not about understanding my universe. And then it was even more frustrating because at the other side, the talks that we had with sales and marketing, or at least the CEO and the rest of like the staff had like with sales and marketing, I felt something else is happening. It's not just that these guys had like the best, metrics, and they had the SaaS systems to support it, right? Salesforce, and if it was marketing, I don't know, HubSpot, and customer success with Zendesk and whatever. And the interesting thing that happened is it's not just this CEO and the rest of the peers was interested to read their metrics. They could understand their process. And for example, hey, we don't have enough pipeline, or the pipeline is not in high quality. Probably what's going to happen, right? That's like a leading indicator. Probably what's going to happen when we're not going to hit our goals in terms of revenue. So it wasn't just an outcome-driven conversation. There was some sort of like intuition that the group developed to each other about if these are our metrics, and we're seeing stuff earlier, it's probably going to affect that. And I was really jealous. I said, hey, we got to get this thing going also for engineering. So I want them to understand the process that it takes like to build software and ship it, so we can develop the same discussions. At that point, I went somewhere, and I'm talking to a lot of like engineering leaders, probably between 3 to 5 every day now. And there's two models that I'm seeing, and unfortunately it's right until this point in time. And we were kind of like that model, the disjointed model. And in the disjointed model, you have, as you can see in the sketch, and it's super interesting, by the way, if you read the Agile Manifesto, which was an amazing document that kind of changed how software is being built. But if you go back and read it right now, you will see sentences like business stakeholders should communicate with developers all the time. So these guys can communicate what's the status, and these guys can communicate the decisions. And this is a disjointed model, right? Because there's people who are taking decisions, or it's a different group than the people who are building the software. And all of the job of the software team or the developers is like to reflect the status up and to understand the new decisions in a more, in a model that is like flowing in a more natural way, which is like the right side. And I'm really happy that internally we're working at it, and some of our prospects and customers are getting it and are not working that way. It's a more of like a common work that people do. We have a saying that we think, I remember that as a junior software developer, and later on, like I have the power, like I'm taking decisions every day. If I'm coding and building and architecting a service in a certain way, it's going to impact the requirements. So basically, the role of the business is to give a lot of business context as much as they can. So the developers, the people that build the software, can take good decisions, and then they can, reflect them. And there's like a situation where you refine the decisions, but this is something that is like flowing in a nice way, in a very natural way. And it's not like this disjointed model. And if you think about it, some of the most successful companies in the world are like were built by developers. And when you have like a group of devs that understand what the business is trying to achieve, that's like when the magic happens. And when the business has like, is open-minded to say, hey, this is what we're trying to build. We're going to communicate it all the time, but you guys can take the decisions now. Good things happen. So in order to do that, what I found back then, and this is what whenever I can, speaking to leaders, I'm saying to them all the time, the main problem that exists today between those two universes is that if you don't start to create a language, and this is one of my favorite quotes of Ludwig Wittgenstein, who was like a great philosopher that analyzes like how linguistics and language like affect like our day to day. The limits of my language means the limits of my words. So our job, I really quickly understood that my job as an engineering leader was to start talking in a regular vocabulary, repeat it again and again, so these guys and girls can start imagining how my domain looks like, right? Otherwise, we're going to be just stuck in the same problem where they're going to just ask me about outcomes again and again, and they won't get like a glimpse into what's happening in my domain. So it's super important. If you need to take one thing out of this session, is that if you are able to create this vocabulary and language and repeat it again and again until like the business understand it, I think you're on the right path. That's the first step. What I found successful in creating this vocabulary, it's not just picking, the things that it's a tricky thing, right? So you don't want to pick just the things that you think that is important for engineering to measure. You need to get buy-in of your team, because you don't want to measure the wrong stuff, lines of codes, commits, things that don't represent anything around quality or throughput or anything like smart. So you want to get the buy-in, but you also want to do the other thing. You want to tie it to business goals. So when you talk and when I say cycle time, I can see the light turns on in the eyes of my VP marketing, VP sales, because they understand how it affects their side of the business. So we did this work where we went and asked ourselves, every CEO, I'm a CEO now, wants new customers, right? We want more customers to join and use our services and our platform. So if you derive back and you understand that new customers, it means that you need to have a constant feature and value delivery, and you can tie it back to this interesting and super metric that is my favorite one, that is called cycle time. Now, and you invest time in explaining that. Now, every time that I say cycle time, every time I said cycle time in those staff meetings, all of a sudden I can see that people understand the impact on the business. So that's one good example. The second one is everybody wants renewals, right? And nobody wants high percentages of churn. So if you focus on, hey, what will get your renewal rate? Let's derive it back. You need customers to be happy. If you have a good time to restore, sometimes you get a customer happier from when they came with a problem, right? So they had a problem, they were frustrated, but if you fix it fast, they can be happier from where they were even before the problem was introduced. So fast, time to restore, you can tie it directly to a business goal of like a good renewal rate. So every time we started presenting mean time to restore, people got it. Non-functional investment, the best way to tie it, we everybody wants like the good developers to join their company. It's a struggle, it's a fight. So if one of the things that I did, I said, listen, here's the business, here's the connection to the business. If we want to invest in non-functional and in infrastructure, and we automate stuff, even there's a temptation to do something manual, people will stay with us. Otherwise, you will start losing them. So this really helped to start a driving conversation. Now I want to share with you some of the things, that 2 years after running with LinearB, what we're seeing are the things that are working and why we like them a lot. So Cycle time is the super metric that I really like. The reasons that I like it is, again, I'll be super open. First, it rolls on the tongue, really nice cycle time. I can see the people. Oh, so the sales cycle. I kind of like can see the connection. So it's a very cool metric. You get a buy-in from your developers because they really believe that this is important. You get a buy-in from the execs. It's really easy to visualize it and see where the bottlenecks are. So it really does the job. And once you dig into this metric, you understand it's not just like how fast we're delivering value, right? If you are able to break things into small cycles, you're probably releasing all the time. So quality will be better. Like if something explodes, it's a small explosion and you can revert really easy. If you're releasing a big release every 3 or 4 weeks, probably quality will be lower and the delivery will be slower. So it's a very simple to understand metric and super important one. So that's one of my favorite. It reinforces like the key engineering vocabulary, like we said. It's easy to understand. I think it's one of the most easiest things to understand to executives if you start talking about it. So that's one. I think the second one is, where are we spending our time? Basically, investment profile, or I would like to call it. So it's both. These are the projects that are taking our time. I had like a situation. I remember like we had an offsite, and I was asked to prepare this kind of data as a VP of engineering. And I was asked, why are we not successful with this project? Why is it not moving forward? And I said, you know why? Because we have like 0.25 people working on it, like a quarter of a person working on it. So if you are able to have this data in front of you all the time and show this is how we're spread across the project, and we're probably spread too thin in some places, it's a really important set of metrics. And also, are we spending time on bugs versus new value? They can really connect to it really easy. So this is also probably one of my favorite. I skipped one that I didn't enter into this metric, into this presentation, but I'll tell you one other thing that I think is one of the important metric, probably my favorite one at this point. KPIs will define your internal engineering culture. So one of the most important things to measure is how much of a buy-in you have to the metrics that you've chosen. Because otherwise, it's just like you as a leader looking at dashboards and say, oh, this is interesting. I can see how things are trending, but everybody needs to buy into to that vision of this is how we're adapting engineering data. And the way to do it is to actually measure the buy-in. So if you're using some kind of tool, make sure like your developers are using it, your frontline manager are using it. It can't be just an executive sitting and looking at dashboard. Otherwise, it won't be successful. So at LinearB, what we did, we create like a metrics runbook that we offer for free. It's a super important first step for people that doesn't necessarily have to be tied with the product. You can just come and download it and start to seeing, hey, this is our suggestion to like how you run a staff meeting or a board meeting with cool data to start creating this vocabulary and language that we just spoke about it just now. Yeah, let me see if the slide is moving to the next one. I don't see the slide moving to the next one, but I'm close to the end. So I think what I want to, okay, now it's moved. Cool. What I want to say to you is that the magic can happen. The results of great translation, and it happened to me. I remember like I had those discussions. I had all of a sudden a VP marketing coming to me and asking, hey, like, since you guys are delaying here and I'm not seeing people are reviewing the code already in this effort, you're probably not going to be able to deliver it. And it was like a aha moment for me, because this is where finally I say, okay, now you guys understand my domain. It's not just me understanding your domain, and I could actually have like, equal conversation with my peers, which was a great achievement. And the last thing that I want to say is like, you're all welcome to check out like all the content that we have around it in LinearB. We have a great Discord channel where dev leaders talk to each other about these problems and some others. You feel free to contact me on LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever you want. And I think I was just out of time. So thank you very much for listening to me today.